Hi there, fellow peasants and Diana Inquest followers. We know it is over, but I tell you, we're not over here at the Diana Inquest because there's just so much that we need to cover, and we need to tell you that we're still going on. So it doesn't really matter that the inquest has ended, and it ended with what we sort of knew before it even began. It had to end that way. Why? Because the Stevens inquiry ended that way, the Paget inquiry ended that way, and if it hadn't ended that way, then the whole thing would have thrown everything into a complete disaster. So we had to end it with the driver being drunk and them not wearing seat belts and driving too fast, and it was all the fault of the paparazzi. Anyway, it's excellent that it happened, because so much took place and there are so many questions that still have to be answered, but they were asked in a legitimate way, and the fact that they were answered not such a legitimate way kind of left truth seekers to say, that's interesting, that question. Okay, what am I talking about? I'm being a bit vague. I'm going to try and be a bit more specific. Okay, the man who brought the trial in the beginning, Mohamed, I don't know if you bother or even to look at any of my previous blogs, and of course you shouldn't, you don't have to, but I think that I said he should get off the pregnancy and get off the engagement, because that's going to bite him in the backside, and actually it did. So basically, the man who was trying to blow us up in the 70s, well, he wasn't trying to blow us, but he was selling arms to the IRA, blowing up the British people in the 70s, then went on in the 90s to kind of like be a spokesman for the British people, because his son was in the car, and he has got billions of quids worth, squiddly diddly quids, and he can afford to take the British government and the establishment and say, I demand a proper inquest. Because if Dodi Fayed hadn't been in the car, the inquest would have lasted 1 week. Or it would have been a judge like Mrs. Butler Schloss, who, believe me, could have given my daughter's horse a run for her money. Never seen anyone look like that. But anyway, Teeth gave Camilla a run for her money as well. Anyway, she was going to read all the notes for 3 months and then open her door and say, I've read the inquiry, it's my opinion it was an accident. And we were right to have an inquiry in front of the public. We were right to see it, we were right to ask questions, we were right to hear what the replies to everything were. Only thing that we really need to know, what do we need to know? Well, what did we need to know? Well, we need to know about the accident. The accident that sort of, this blew the pregnancy and the engagement, and then the whole thing got blown away on February the 4th by Moho himself, who got up there mad as hell and ranted for about 2 or 3 hours. Now, if you go back to my blog where we did vampire bats and they're everywhere, well, that particular blog was about Moho's rant. And in comedy purposes, for Comedy Central, it was fantastic. But in terms of the inquest, it just blew a hole in the whole thing, because the coroner asked him, how did you know about the pregnancy and the engagement? And he said, well, they phoned me an hour before the crash, which allowed the coroner to say, you think that Prince Philip pulled this whole thing together in an hour? Pfft, case over. Okay, so that blew a huge hole in what was actually, up until then, quite an interesting, we were going, I don't know if I'll get away with this. Then Fayed gets up there, rants and raves about Frankenstein and vampire bats, and the whole thing is blown out the water. But it doesn't matter, because it had to end up there anyway, so it really didn't matter that he ranted and raved. And it was wonderful comedy, and the British people were like, oh, marvellous, marvellous, you know, because they actually got to stick it to the royal family, which is what they wanted to do for a long time. Whether they believed in them or not, it was a wonderful stick it to them day. But what we need to know is, the Secret Service, when the Secret Service got up, and listen to what I'm saying, Secret Service. Now, what does that mean? That means it's a secret. That means they're never going to go up and tell you anything, because it's a secret. It's like a stripper getting up and saying, yeah, I take my clothes off, but I don't strip. Or yes, I'm a stripper, but I don't take my clothes off. Or it doesn't make sense. Yes, they're in the business to keep secrets, but what did we learn from the Secret Service? Not a lot, but if we got to look, there was an accident plot. It had been hatched in the 80s to kill probably Milosevic or some unknown Balkan, and you know, and it had a white Fiat Uno and it had a bright flashing light. How much would it take to re-inactivate that accident? Not very long. And what did they need? It was like a bomb that needed to be like set off to explode. It needed one factor. It needed a mob. And they created a mob outside the Ritz Hotel on the night of August the 31st. I mean, just know that wherever Diana goes, a mob will appear. But there was a bigger mob that night because Dodi was with her. It was a new boyfriend and yada, yada, yada. So there were people out there for Diana. There was paparazzi outside the hotel. But were there other people there creating mob-like, you know, whatever you do when you create havoc. And so that's what they needed. They needed to create havoc, to create a mob, and that's what created the accident. Now the blood, we did get to the point in the trial where the French, remember when they rode in the last day and said, you can't, the French, oh, we're saving the day. And they actually said on the last day of the trial, and they'd had this evidence from before the beginning of the trial, that you couldn't count the blood because they had DNA that was actually linked to Henri Paul, and they actually said don't count the blood, you can't rely on it, it's all fabrication. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we're going on. We know all these facts, we're going on. And how are we going on? Well, Diana devotees, I've written a book. Of course I've written a book, everybody's got a bloody book, but anyway, my book was called God Save Us All from Queen Camilla, and it's got lots of funny old bits in it about, you know, the Queen and about Camilla and the royal family and the history and and it's like me, it's irreverent and it's completely off the wall and it's funny. But because of the blogs that I've been doing, and we've been calling it Camilla Most Hated Woman, so I need to ask you a question. Should I change the title to Camilla World's Most Hated Woman? I know you write to me a lot and I get fantastic comments, you know, like, hate that bitch, she should burn in hell for what she did to Diana, and all that. This goes on and on and on. They're hysterical. So I really want to hear from you. What do you think's a better title? This was the cover of the book. You've seen it. You've seen it because it belongs to that sketch, the first sketch with Camilla, and it's the title of the book. It originally was called, you know, this book was written originally because it was the first anniversary. It was going to be an official first anniversary to the wedding in 006. But of course we're a bit past that now because it's 008 and we've had the inquest. Not that I write about the inquest in this book. 83 books about the Diana accident were spurned from that inquest. 250 witnesses. So a lot happened. It was important. I know the British taxpayers moan and groan because they think the money would have been spent on the poor. It wasn't going to the poor. I'm sorry to break that to them. It wasn't going to the poor. But anyway, this book, or this, yes, anyway, I want to hear from you. I want you to tell me, and it's going to be hopefully around about $15. So, and it's going to be out hopefully before Christmas. Yeah. I said, I don't know why I said Christmas, because I was hoping it'd be the summer. But maybe it will be before Christmas. So there you go. Anyway, we're going to keep talking because stuff keeps coming up all the time, and we'll see you very shortly. Adios.